tonight's topic, going to get right into it, this notion of wrestling with giftedness. Wrestling with giftedness. And for someone, like if you're like me, you may find yourself with more than one gift. And the reality of it is, when you find yourself with more than one gift, a part of your journey, a part of your process, a part of your growth will include being able to not just recognize what those gifts are and that you indeed have multiple gifts and embrace them, but also learn how to manage them. God calls us to be a steward over the things that he blesses us with, and gifts are no different. And so as we grow and as we develop, as God matures and stretches us, a part of that learning and development lives in this notion of embracing your gifts, knowing how to appropriately place and use your gifts, and really wrestling with this notion of what do I do when I am gifted, I'm talented, I'm skilled, thanks be to God for it all, and how do I maneuver in spaces that may or may not be conducive to my gifts. So it's one thing in recognizing that you have gifts, identifying what those gifts are and embracing them to the fullest, and then as you grow, managing those gifts, and then you tackle on this notion of having to now decide, how do I maneuver this gift in the various spaces that God places us in? And that for me has what's been the challenge. As I've been taking this journey, right, there are 3 questions that dropped in my spirit the other day as I was maneuvering through my day, and a couple of meetings that I had was, first, what happens when you're frustrated, when the gift breeds frustration. And if there's anyone out there that's gifted and have not been frustrated with your gift, then I salute you. But for anyone that has at least one gift, and have found yourself in a space of frustration, and it could be for a variety of reasons, then tonight's download is specifically for you. And that was one of the things that was heightened as I was going about my day, this notion of like, man, sometimes I can just be frustrated with my gifts. I can be frustrated with how to use them, when to use them, when not to use them, how much of the gift to use. And then all of that catapults into a very frustrated state, because of course you're always wanting to be pleasing to God, and you always want to make sure, again, that you're being a good steward of what God has deposited on the inside of you. And that can be very difficult. There's no blueprint on this stuff, right? And so you're just doing life, and each of us do it to the best of our abilities daily, but you find yourself sometimes frustrated with your gifts. And again, how to appropriately manage them, how to efficiently oversee these gifts and make sure that you're using them in the way God intended, where God intended, and how God intended. And that leads to the second question. When you're faced with the discerning of where your gifts are to be used, there is a space for your gifts to be used. For every gift, there's a space for it. And sometimes that space isn't always welcoming of the gift. So it's not that there isn't a space for your gift, but sometimes that space isn't always welcoming, or as welcoming as you would like for it to be for your gifts. And so that causes you to be frustrated, to find frustration with both the gift and the space. Like, why isn't this working? Why isn't there's this seamless, I guess, alignment. I'm trying to do God's will. I'm trying to make sure I'm obedient. I'm just trying to serve, or whatever it is, whatever it is you're trying to do to operate. I'm trying to operate in my gift, and the space and my gift are not seemingly in alignment. What do I do? And then the last question that's raised around this wrestle of giftedness is this thought around, after I've looked at, okay, how should I use my gift? When should I use my gift? Where should I use my gift? Again, the adverse of when not to. When do I need to step back, and when do I need to discern and make a decision that this may not be the space or the time for the gift to operate. And so I titled this wrestle of giftedness, because it's not that you're not gifted. It's not that you don't know that God has given you some divine gifts, but it's just learning how to manage them and oversee them and place them and operate and make sure you're doing what it is that God has ordained and destined you to do. And that can sometimes cause frustration. That can sometimes cause a confused state of mind, and you're left with questions. You're left with wonderings. You're left with graspings. You're left wrestling with your greatness. You're left wrestling with your giftedness. And God gave me this revelation that I want to just share with you all. Is this notion of, yes, you're gifted. Yes, daughter, I have deposited my spirit on the inside of you that allows you to function in these gifts. And yes, you have sometimes found yourself in spaces that weren't as favorable as you would have liked of your gifts, etc. But this next dimension of understanding gifts and understanding the management of these gifts is also realizing that the gifts you have must be accompanied with my grace. And I said, okay, God, say more. Like, there's the gifts that you have, but I also have to align my grace with those gifts. And so it's not that you're gifted, but you have to know when I'm gifted, but I'm not graced to operate in my gift at this time or in this capacity. The best example God gave me was, some of you may or may not know, I am an educator by trade. I'm a teacher by trade. Had the fortunate privilege to teach at the middle and high school levels, I feel like forever ago. But I started out as a classroom teacher. And so I can remember when I stepped away from teaching, and I like to say I retired. Many people have said that I would be back in the classroom, but I have been in other types of classroom at the collegiate level, of course in ministry, but I have yet to find myself back in a traditional classroom space in a school. And the reality of it is, as much as I love to teach, as much as I have a passion for teaching, as much as I'm gifted to teach, I was no longer graced to teach in that particular realm, in that particular space, and that space being the traditional classroom as we know it. When God called me from the classroom, it wasn't an indictment on the classroom. It wasn't an indictment on schools, or, believe it or not, the brokenness of our school system, or even our children. There was no indictment on anybody. It wasn't an indictment on me. It wasn't that I got burned out or I left defeated. It was just this notion of, yes, you have this gift. Yes, you have this passion. Yes, you have this desire. But along with that, when you go another level in maturity and understanding God and destiny, you realize that I can have all the gift that I want. I can have all of the talent I want. I can have all of the desire. But if I don't have God's grace to align with that gifting, then I'm going to find myself frustrated, or I'm going to find myself inefficient, or not feeling fulfilled, or feeling, as I put it the other night, out of place. Because it may not be a question of gifting. It may not be a question of space, as it is a question of God's grace. Is God's grace aligned with me operating in this gift, in this space, at this time? You have to answer all of those questions. So it's no question about, believe it or not, y'all, I think I can still go in a classroom and rock it. Even with the dysfunction of today's school system and its interesting ways of doing things, I think I can still pretty be successful. But do I have the grace that I need to fully be efficient, effective, successful, and to reach the highest potential that God set out for me? And I believe some of us are operating in our gifts, but they're not operating in alignment with God's grace. And that's why we see short-term success or limited success, and we hit these walls of what's happening, because God is like, yes, you got it right around gifts, but you don't have it right around my grace. My grace is not with you in this space for whatever reason. And again, there's no indictment on the space. There's no indictment on the gift. There's no indictment on you. But it is this question of, is this the time? And is this the appointed place for this gift? And all of that comes under the auspice of God's grace. When it's God's grace, it'll flow. When it's God's grace, there will be no tension. When it's God's grace, even if there's frustration, it will easily subside, because God's grace will come in and consume what may be frustrations stem from the flesh, right? Because we're human, so things occur, conflicts occur, disagreements occur, or bad days happen. But God's grace is so mighty in the fact that when God's grace accompanies your gift, you are able to do the exceedingly and the abundantly with your gift and in your gift. And I am coming to a place, more and more God is pushing me rather, to a place of understanding, as I wrestle with my giftedness, the grace that must accompany my many gifts. And I ain't saying you can't do it. It ain't saying you ain't gonna do it. It's not saying that you're not equipped to do it. But you need to consult me, daughter. You need to holler at God and ensure that when you're moving and how you're moving and where you're moving is in sync with the grace, the flow. Because if it is not, you're going to find yourself in spaces where you're wrestling, where you're frustrated, where you're feeling burnt out and defeated, and you're almost questioning, am I gifted or not? Do I have what it takes? And God is like, it's not a matter of questioning that as it is questioning, am I graced to do this in this season, in this hour, in this space? And so just wanted to drop that nugget, the wrestling with giftedness, right? And again, as you grow and go, and as you mature and as we develop, and as we go on this journey of destiny, it's so important. I was sharing with a dear friend and sister of mine earlier today around God is so cold with it. God can take the same gift, the same vessel, and use it totally different in another space. So who you were and how you operated in one space may look totally different in another space. And can you be nimble enough to flow in that vein with God? Can you be nimble enough to flow in the grace of God? To say, hey, over here, this gift was being used in this regard. This gift was being used in this capacity. And once moved or once transitioned, God, in his infinite wisdom and his infinite ways, is able to work that thing. Same gift, same person, different space, but also a different functioning or a different dimension of the gift. And so I believe God's charge to us and challenge as we continue on our journeys and really wrestle with our giftings and wrestle with giftedness is being able to be nimble and flexible and realize that we are the stewards, we are the managers of our gifts, but we are not the ultimate owners of our gift, if that makes sense. Like God has given us these treasures that's inside of us, and as my pastor preached on Sunday, we are the containers of some mighty treasures. But at the same time, God is like, I ultimately am the owner of the treasures. So that's tonight's download. That is tonight's Destiny Nugget. Wrestlings of giftedness. I pray you all are encouraged as you go about your journeys. I pray that you will allow God to speak to you in a way that helps you to resolve any unsettlings you may have as it relates to not whether or not you're gifted. You're definitely gifted. Everyone indeed has at least one gift, but that God will lead you in a way that you are using your gifts in the space and in the timing and how God has designed and destined for that gift to operate. So that is my prayer for you all on tonight as you go about your individual journeys, that you continuously seek God, consult God, and ensure that God's grace accompanies the gifts.